Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Privacy Espresso. My name is Corina Moraru. I'm the account manager at Privacy Rules, and today I'm pleased to be joined by a very special guest and the first of its kind expert at our Privacy Espresso series, David Finz. David, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here.
Hi, Corina. Thank you for having me on.
So David is the author of the Cyber Insurance Imperative book and the host of the podcast with the same name. So a true expert and pioneer in the field of cyber insurance. Throughout his career, David worked at leading insurance companies like Marsh, like Allianz, and now he is the vice president of cyber risk at Alliant Insurance Services, where David helps organizations to manage the financial impact of cyber risk by educating his clients on insurance marketplace, negotiating best-in-class coverage, and most importantly, by deeply caring about his clients. David, once again, thank you so much. Help us understand your field. What is cyber insurance and why it's important for organizations of any kinds of and sizes to seriously consider adopting the cyber insurance?
Sure. Thanks, Corina. So, cyber insurance is a pretty broad description of a coverage that is designed to help with the out-of-pocket costs as well as the cost of defending a claim that's made against a company that involves some type of compromise to their data or their network, or to the data or network of somebody else that they depend upon, right? We categorize these as first-party expenses and third-party expenses, right? The first-party expenses being the out-of-pocket costs. So that might include the engagement of privacy counsel to advise a client around a breach. It might involve the cost of hiring a public relations firm or a forensics team to come in and investigate what took place. And there's many other types of first-party coverages as well. The third-party costs are the costs associated with defending a claim and potentially settling a claim, or having to pay damages if there's a judgment against the company as a result of the damage that it caused to another party because of a failure of its own security or privacy.
Taking especially into account the growing rate of the cyber attacks, especially nowadays, let's say I'm a medium-sized business organization and I understood the importance of a cyber insurance policy. What are the next steps for me? What are the requirements in order for me to comply with and be able to gain the cyber coverage?
Right. Well, the cyber insurance underwriters have become a lot more sophisticated over the past couple of years because they're seeing the claims that come in. And as they are paying out these losses, they are becoming more aware of the types of controls, the types of protections that they want to see their policyholders, or as we call them, the insured, employ so that they are more resilient, so they're more resistant to an attack, and also so that they're able to recover more quickly. This is not a check the box type of exercise, right? What they're looking for is for a company to really have a culture of security. And it involves they're having the right technology in place, like firewalls and endpoint detection and response, multi-factor authentication to verify someone's identity on the network, but also having the right training for people and the right processes in place. So when we talk about privacy, we're also talking about having a culture that respects and understands their obligations under the law. Obviously, Europe is a little bit ahead of the United States with the enactment of GDPR, but now we are beginning to see first California and now other states as well, starting to adapt standards that are similar to those that we see with GDPR. So it's really not just about notifying people when there's been a breach and offering them credit monitoring, but it's also about understanding what your obligations are in handling the data, making sure that you have a privacy policy in place that is compliant with these rules, having a procedure for explaining to your customers how their data is managed, how it's collected, whether it is shared with other parties, the opportunity for those individuals to request that that record be disposed of, what we know is called the right to be forgotten under the law. And so embedding all of this in the processes of the company and training employees in how to safeguard that data, what needs to be encrypted, how it should be backed up, all of this is taken into account by the underwriters. And as a broker, it's our job to educate our clients and advise them around the types of processes they should have in place and to connect them with service providers who can help them ensure that they are complying with the law.
Indeed, that's a very interesting and of course valid point. You mentioned the privacy implications. So when speaking about the privacy specifically, what are the main challenges that you noticed so far at the intersection of with cyber insurance, especially taking into account various parties, third parties, and parties involved in the cyber insurance process?
Sure. So originally, when the cyber insurance product first began to catch on in the United States in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, the focus was really around consumer data. It was around managing the large types of breaches that we saw with retailers, hotel chains, banks, and other financial institutions that have large quantities of data. And so when we talk about privacy regulations, they originally were built up around the process of notifying people when their information had been compromised. But we've moved beyond that now, as I mentioned before with GDPR, and we're beginning to see equivalents of that here in the United States, where there's a whole regime around protecting the data, managing it properly, how it's collected, how it is shared, how it is disposed of. And so as the regulations have changed, one of the challenges we've seen in the world of cyber insurance is making sure that the policy wording stays current with the changes in the business environment that companies find themselves in. So now that regulators are able to initiate inquiries against companies around incidents that have nothing to do with whether information was compromised, it may simply be a violation of how the information is collected, stored, disposed of, whether they file the required reports with the ICO. All of this is now the subject of regulatory authority. And so the coverage has to be broader. It has to be, as I say, decoupled from whether there is a breach. The coverage needs to be triggered anytime there is a non-routine investigation by a regulator in connection with how a company manages its data. And so making sure that that wording stays current has been a challenge for brokers and underwriters to make sure that it accurately reflects what is going on out there and the challenges that business face.
David, thank you so much. That was really interesting and insightful, and I believe it was very of a practical usage for our audience. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me, Karina.
And bye-bye, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you at our next Privacy Espresso next week.